Lord Gaben prefers the Xbox Series X instead of PS5. Ubisoft cancelled the King Arthur-like game after 1 year into development. Sony PS5 will have a DLSS-like AI enhancement feature, and there might be a dual GPU PS5 Pro in the future. So a lot of things to go through in this episode. Hey, what is happening, guys? This is Orka from Orka's Gaming Corner, and welcome to another week of gaming news. Let's start with Ubisoft and what exactly is going on in their higher management. At the moment, Ubisoft has come under fire for toxic work environment and sexual harassment cases being alleged against their top management, and a lot of people seems to have abandoned ship. Amongst those who left, one of the most prominent people to leave was Ubisoft Chief Creative Officer Sergey. The guy has been accused of enabling and facilitating toxicity and misogyny. Oh yeah, this is also the guy who said that female protagonist does not sell in video games and forced the addition of male protagonists in games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Well, female protagonists do not sell is utter BS, and Tomb Raider is an example of that. Even if you play through Odyssey, the female character is much suited for the game, although you could now argue that male protagonist was a version of forced male inclusion, hence the character is quite bland in my taste. Sergey, being the chief creative officer in Ubisoft, seems to have had a lot of clout, and when I say a lot, it's to the extent where he could single-handedly greenlight a new game and also stop any game from releasing that he did not like. And to top it off, Sergey only liked open world games. So now we know why all the games that have come out in the last 10 years from Ubisoft are almost the same. Huge open worlds, every game has some kind of gear-based character progression, and a huge section of the world is filled with meaningless quests. No wonder franchises such as Prince of Persia and Splinter Cell are nowhere to be seen, and Assassin's Creed has become the open world game with very less focus on story. Now in the same section, according to game journalist extraordinaire Mr. Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, Ubisoft Quebec had an RPG in development in 2018 called Avalon, which was based on King Arthur's story and the Round Table, with a lot of fantasy elements and also a multiplayer co-op like Monster Hunter World by Capcom. However, Mike Laidlaw, the creative director of the game, left in early January 2019 and Project Athlon got canned. Now in 2020, we come to know that this was the doing of none other than Sergey, who got Project Athlon axed and asked the developers that if they were going to create a fantasy title, it needed to be better than the works of none other than J.R.R. Tolkien. Wow, that means series like Lord of the Rings and Hobbits. Good thing Sergey is no longer in Ubisoft, and we can be more hopeful to see much more variety in Ubisoft's games in the future. Now in other news, Gabe Newell said in an interview in New Zealand that he prefers Xbox Series X over the PS5. He just said that and did not give any specific reasons as to why. So it could be one, because Microsoft has become much more open and consumer friendly, unlike Sony, who is still mostly closed. 2, it could be because of the integration of Xbox games on Steam. And lastly, he probably thinks that Xbox Series X is actually better than the PS5, and which may be true. Well, of course, I and millions of other people would like to know why exactly he thinks Xbox Series X is better than the PS5, so that we as consumers can make much more informed buying decisions. After all, Gaben is the creator of Half-Life and Steam and has done so much for gaming in the 90s and 2000s. Now, while we are still on the topic of consoles, there is a patent on the internet source via FPO patent site. Sony has a patent similar to DLSS for PS5, which uses AI upscaling and will be useful for bringing 4K 60 FPS with ray tracing to the masses. It's good to know that Sony is looking into stuff like DLSS in their own way, and as the AI tech improves, the games will run much faster and better on the PS5. So as far as next gen is concerned, the ball is going to be played on different fields, and AI tech is one such field. So it's not just about who has the more cores and compute units or teraflops anymore. I guess it will be more like a combination of hardware and AI upscaling. Well, as far as AI upscaling is concerned, Nvidia, the PC graphics manufacturer, is way ahead of everyone else, with DLSS 2.0 doing wonders for PC gamers and the new DLSS 3.0 just on the horizon. Also, EA is pulling out yet another one from their ass, and this time they are going to add television ads in their sports titles. So for all of you FIFA fans, you have to watch out, because after every game you might need to watch an ad, or it might just pop up in between while you're playing games. EA may be starting yet another shitty trend. I just hope there is enough backlash from people so that this does not work out. Now there is yet another patent by Sony, and this one is for multi-GPU, and it reads scalable game console CPU/GPU design for home consoles and cloud gaming. So there are already rumors about PS5 Pro, even though PS5 has not released. I know, it's kind of stupid, but that is how people and especially fans are, right? Now that there is a multi-GPU patent by Sony, there is a chance that PS5 Pro or even the PS6 might be a multi-GPU console, which I find very hard to believe because of the amount of heat that gets generated in multi-GPU setups, and especially me having tried out a multi-GPU setup back in my college days. I just want to emphasize that they need a ton of power and produce a ton of heat. But Sony being Sony might just do that, and maybe that is the reason PS5 is so freaking huge as a PC tower, right? Now I have a few more topics to run by. Halo Infinite multiplayer will be free for everyone on PC and Xbox to play, which can be a good and a bad thing, and I'll get into that a bit later. More importantly, 343 Studios did come out and acknowledge that yes, Halo is not up to snuff, especially on the graphical front, and a lot of tweaking will happen before the game launches. Well, that is good. Now, about the multiplayer being free, it is generally a good thing, but it could also mean that they are going to monetize the shit out of the game, and that would ruin the experience. Also, the game will play at 120 FPS on the Series X, and I know people are stoked for it, but in my opinion, the game first needs to nail down the campaign, the graphics, the multiplayer, and the progression system, and then they can look into stuff like 120 FPS. Remember, a shitty game at 120 FPS will still be a shitty game. We have reached the end of this week's gaming news. If you like what I do, please like, share and subscribe to my channel Orka's Gaming Corner. I have still been playing Ghost of Tsushima. What can I say? The game is amazing. Also, let me know what you guys have been playing in the comments below, and I'll catch you next week with some more gaming news.